Special respect to the chair of the Counterterrorism and Intelligence Subcommittee, the gentleman from Pennsylvania who I enjoyed immensely working with, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from New York.
I have no further speakers.
Gentleman from Mississippi.
Mr. Speaker, I have no speakers. If the gentleman from New York has no more speakers, then I'm prepared to close.
Gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. H.R. 3140, as introduced by our former committee colleague, Ms. Spear, is a needed, common-sense piece of legislation with a history of bipartisan support. I urge my colleagues to support this measure and the security of our mass transit system. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I come from a region which has almost 6 million daily passengers on subway and commuter lines. This legislation is absolutely vital, and I urge its adoption and yield back the balance of my time.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 3140? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. From Florida. What purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I sent to the desk a privileged report from the Committee on Rules for filing under the rule.
Clerk will report the title of the bill.
Report to accompany House Resolution 667, resolution providing for consideration of the bill, H.R. 5743, to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2013 for intelligence and intelligence-related activities of the United States government, the Community Management Account, and the Central Intelligence Agency Retirement and Disability System, and for other purposes, providing for consideration of the bill H.R. 5854, making appropriations for military construction, the Department of Veterans Affairs and related agencies for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2013, and for other purposes, providing for consideration of the bill H.R. 5855, making appropriations for the Department of Homeland Security for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2013, and for other purposes, and providing for consideration of the bill H.R. 5325, making appropriations for energy and water development and related agencies for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2013, and for other purposes.
Referred to the House calendar and ordered printed. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, proceedings will now resume. On motions to suspend the rules previously postponed, votes will be taken in the following order. H.R. 5651 by the yeas and nays, H.R. 4201 by the yeas and nays, H.R. 915 by the yeas and nays. The first electronic vote will be conducted as a 15-minute vote. Remaining electronic votes will be conducted as 5-minute votes. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Upton, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 5651 as amended, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 5651, a bill to amend the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act to revise and extend the user fee programs for prescription drugs and for medical devices, to establish user fee programs for generic drugs and biosimilars, and for other purposes.
Question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
This vote is on a revised version of the House bill that would renew the user fee program that pays for the Food and Drug Administration's review of prescription drugs. It also creates new user fees for review of generic drugs. The Congressional Budget Office says the bill would reduce the federal deficit by $370 million over 10 years, which puts it in line with a different Senate-passed version. Last week, the CBO said another version of the House bill, voted out of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, would increase the federal deficit. That's increased the federal deficit by $247 billion over 10 years. As the House continues to vote on this FDA measure, earlier today, the House debated a measure that imposes criminal penalties on anyone who performs, coerces, or accepts funds for an abortion that's based solely on the unborn child's sex. Violators could be fined, imprisoned for up to 5 years, or both. And medical professionals and other personnel would be required to report suspected violations of the law. Congressional Quarterly writes that the National Right to Life Committee said it could include that vote on the gender-based abortion bill, in its key vote scorecard, saying in a letter to Congress yesterday, quote, "It is to be hoped that even many members of Congress who deem themselves pro-choice will recoil at the notion that freedom of choice must include even the choice to abort a little unborn girl, merely because she's a girl." We're going to go back now to hear some of that debate from earlier today on that gender-based abortion bill.
The Prenatal Non-Discrimination Act we are debating at this moment simply says that an unborn child cannot be discriminated against by subjecting them to an abortion based on the sex of the child. Because between 40 and 50% of African-American babies, nearly 1 in 2, are killed by abortion, that's 5 times, Mr. Chairman, the rate of white children. I believe with all of my heart that this bill should also prohibit race-targeted abortion, as it did when the bill was first introduced. It is my hope that by protecting unborn children from being aborted based on their sex, that one day, very soon, we will also recognize the humanity and justice of protecting unborn children regardless of their race or color as well, and simply because we recognize them as fellow human beings. With that said, Mr. Speaker, worldwide, sex selection abortion has now left the human family on Earth with approximately 200 million missing baby girls. Various United Nations organizations have battled sex selection abortion for years. These agencies routinely refer to sex selection abortion as, quote, an extreme form of violence against women, close quote. In the New Atlantis magazine, political economist Nicholas Eberstadt of the American Enterprise Institute said, in terms of its sheer toll in numbers, human numbers, sex-selective abortion has assumed a scale tantamount to a global war against baby girls, close quote. In 2007, the United States spearheaded a UN resolution to condemn sex selection abortion worldwide. Yet here in the land of the free and the home of the brave, we are the only advanced country left in the world that still doesn't restrict sex selection abortion in any way. Mr. Speaker, a number of academic papers have now published evidence that the practice of sex selection abortion is demonstrably increasing here in the United States, especially, but not exclusively, in the Asian immigrant community. A study by researchers at the University of Connecticut, published in Prenatal Diagnosis of March 2011, found that male-to-female live birth sex ratio in the United States for Chinese, Asian Indians, and Koreans clearly exceeded biological variation for third births and beyond. Mr. Speaker, deliberate prenatal sex selection is the only plausible explanation. Dr. Sunita Puri and 3 other researchers at the University of California interviewed 65 immigrant Indian women in the United States who had sought or were seeking sex selection abortion. They found that 40% of the women interviewed had deliberately aborted unborn baby girls previously, and nearly 90% of the women who were currently carrying an unborn baby girl were also currently seeking to abort them. This was an incredibly powerful study, Mr. Speaker, and it discussed in detail the multiple forms of pressure and outright coercion to which these women are often subjected. 62% of the women described verbal abuse from their husbands or female in-laws, and fully one-third of women described past physical abuse and neglect, all related specifically to their failing to produce a male child. As a result, these women reported aborting multiple unborn baby girls in a row because of the pressure that was put on them to have a male child. Mr. Speaker, sex selection abortion is extreme violence against both unborn baby girls and their mothers. It's been a primary enforcement mechanism for China's forced abortion and one-child policy for many years. It has dramatically increased sex trafficking and violence against women due to the imbalanced sex ratios left in its wake across the world. And we now know that it is a tragic circumstance into which many women are also being coerced. This evil practice has now allowed thousands of little girls in America and millions of little girls across the world to be brutally dismembered, most of them in their second or third trimester, when they are capable of feeling extreme pain simply because they were little girls instead of little boys, Mr. Speaker. Sex selection is violence against women, and it is the truest kind of war against women. And it has now brought humanity to a place where the three deadliest words on this earth are, "It's a girl." What in God's name have we come to, Mr. Speaker? You know, I've often asked myself what finally enlightened and changed the hearts of those across history who have either perpetrated or supported or ignored the atrocities and human genocides of their day. And while I probably will never fully understand, I believe I caught a glimpse of the answer from my 3-year-old little girl, Gracie. As I was holding her and we were watching her favorite laughing baby videos on YouTube, I inadvertently clicked on a video that showed a young man from China playing poignant and beautiful music on the piano with his feet because both of his arms had been amputated when he was a child. Trying to seize on a teaching moment, Mr. Speaker, I said, "Look at that, Gracie. He's playing the piano with his feet. Isn't that amazing?" But with a stricken little look on her face, Gracie said, "But, Daddy, he doesn't have any arms." And I said, "I know, baby, and that's very sad, isn't it?" And she said, "Oh, Daddy, it is very sad. We got to help him. We just got to. We've got to get some arms and give it to him." And I said, "But, baby, there aren't any extra arms. They're all hooked on to other people." And she thought for a moment and looked at me with wet little eyes and pulled up her sleeve and held up her little arm and said, "But, Daddy, can I give him one of my arms if it will fit on him?" You know, across human history, the greatest and most loving voices among us have always emphasized the critical responsibility each of us has to recognize and cherish the light of divine, eternal humanity shining in the soul of every last one of our fellow human beings. And I believe the answer to some of these seemingly unanswerable questions, Mr. Speaker, that face the human families and how we see each other. On that YouTube video, I saw an amazing young man who played heart-stirring music with his feet. But my little girl saw a child of God who had no arms and wanted to give him one of hers. And how very thankful I am that my little Gracie was not one of the hundreds of millions of little girls whose lives and hearts were torn from this world before they ever saw the light of sunrise, simply because they were little girls instead of little boys. And I know that this Congress deals with many controversial issues where it's sometimes difficult for Republicans and Democrats to find common ground. But I refuse to believe that we cannot find enough humanity in this body to conclude together that it is wrong to knowingly kill unborn children because they are baby girls instead of baby boys. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman
Mr.
from
Speaker,
Michigan.
I would yield myself such time as I may consume.
So recognized.
Members of the House, I want to thank the leadership on the other side for requiring that the chairman of the Constitution Subcommittee, the gentleman from Arizona, drop race from this prenatal non-discrimination act, so-called, and so it's now just sex selection. It's the latest in a long series of measures intended to chip away at a woman's right to seek safe, legal medical care. It tramples the rights of women under the guise of non-discrimination, while doing absolutely nothing to provide women with the needed resources so that their babies, female and male, can come into the world healthy and so that both mother and child can thrive. And I am grateful that the proponents of this bill have stopped making the ridiculous charge that I used to hear that reproductive freedom is worse than slavery, and invoking at the same time the name of the great abolitionist leader, Frederick Douglass, in the service of their cause. It was deeply offensive, and I'm glad that we won't have to listen to that anymore. And I will at this point reserve the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Arizona.
Mr. Speaker, I would now yield 1.5 minutes to the gentlewoman from Florida, Mrs. Adams.
Gentleman from Florida.
She's a member of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Speaker.
Recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 3451, the Prenatal Non-Discrimination Act, PRENDA, introduced by Representative Trent Franks. As a mother of a daughter, I am disturbed by what I am hearing about sex selection occurring in the United States. A 2008 Columbia University report found that there is strong son bias and that there is clear evidence of sex selection, most likely at the prenatal stage. The victims of sex selection abortions are predominantly female, and most are later term, which means these gruesome abortions are occurring after the child becomes pain capable. In 2007, the United States spearheaded an international resolution to condemn sex selection. Yet, however, there are no laws preventing or prohibiting the practice in the United States. And while I stand here, I think about just yesterday, as I watched as my little granddaughter inside her mother's womb turned towards that ultrasound. This issue of life is a divisive one in politics, but I think all Americans can agree aborting babies because they are the wrong sex is just plain wrong. Let's put a stop to this egregious practice, and let's pass this legislation.
Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased now to recognize the ranking member of the Constitution Subcommittee, the distinguished gentleman from New York, Jerry Nadler, for as much time as he may consume.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the so-called Prenatal Non-Discrimination Act. Today, the Republican majority continues its war on women in a new and creative way by attempting to couch legislation that would destroy women's fundamental constitutional rights as a women's rights law. It is cynical but creative. Trying to destroy women's constitutional rights and pretending that it is somehow being pro-woman plays well to the far right-wing base but does nothing to help American families get on their feet and put people back to work. This bill criminalizes abortion prior to viability. It makes pre-viability abortions a crime under certain circumstances, a flagrantly unconstitutional provision under Roe v. Wade. Under this bill, a relative who disagreed with a woman's choice would be able to sue a doctor simply by alleging that the woman had an impermissible motive. The doctor would face years of litigation at great expense. A relative could even obtain an injunction blocking an abortion from going forward merely by alleging that the abortion is being done for the purposes of sex selection. While the matter is being litigated, the pregnancy would go forward so that regardless of the merits, a woman would be compelled by a court injunction to proceed with her pregnancy against her will, perhaps to have an abortion at a much later stage with a much more mature fetus. Any clinic employee who suspected, merely suspected, that a woman's motives ran afoul of this law would have a legal obligation under penalty of prison to report that suspicion to law enforcement. How would this affect the basic practice of medicine? H.R. 3541 would force health care providers to inquire into a woman's reasons for seeking abortion services. Physicians would have to consider whether women seeking routine non-abortion services, such as determining the sex of the fetus, might then use that information in deciding whether to continue a pregnancy. Given the severe civil and criminal penalties in this bill, doctors would be forced to police their patients, read their minds, and conceal information from them. The failure to do so would put medical professionals at risk of prosecution and lawsuits. This bill is facially unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has held, beginning with Roe v. Wade and in Casey and subsequent cases, that the decision whether to have a child or whether to end the pregnancy is a private one. Up until the point of viability, the government may not make that decision for a woman. Following viability, the government may regulate or bar an abortion, except when the abortion is necessary to protect the life or health of the woman. The preference for male children is a real, if limited, phenomenon in the United States. Some women face familial and community preference to have male children, and that pressure can increase with each subsequent birth. But this bill does nothing to help those women. This bill cites the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women as urging governments to prevent sex-selective abortions, but it ignores the concerns of those who work on this problem, such as the UN Population Fund, the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, the UN Children's Fund, UN Women, and the World Health Organization, that abortion restrictions are not the solution because they put women's health and lives in jeopardy and violate women's human and reproductive rights. Where is the legislation providing women with the means to achieve independence so they are not subject to community and family pressures? My Republican colleagues opposed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act that would have done just that. We all had to watch the charade recently where Republicans pretended they weren't going after the Violence Against Women Act with a meat axe. Where is the support for family planning services so we have fewer unplanned pregnancies and therefore fewer abortions? Where is the commitment to maternal and child health programs? But all this costs money. It won't do anything to undermine Roe v. Wade, and it doesn't play well in the world of abortion politics. I urge the members of this House to reject the cynical, dishonest, and hypocritical legislation. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Arizona.
Mr. Speaker, I would now yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. King. He is the Vice Chairman of the Judiciary Immigration Subcommittee.
Gentleman from Iowa is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman from Arizona for his leadership on this issue and many other issues. And I come to the floor here in strong support of this act that's before us, this Prenda Act. And, you know, the very idea of sex selection, abortion, gendercide, as it was so aptly named, brought back to mind for me a story that I heard from a man whom I admired. His name was Gil Copper. Sadly, we lost him back in 2010. Gil Copper was a World War II veteran who volunteered with Merrill's Marauders in Asia and marched across those areas in India and Burma to take on the Japanese behind the scenes. Gil Copper picked up and was awarded 1 Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Combat Infantry Badge, and 1 Purple Heart. And Gil Copper spent his time off in Asia under the bridge in New Delhi, India, standing in the Ganges River, listening for the splash. Standing there day or night, any time he had off, listening for the splash of a little baby girl that would often and regularly be tossed off of the bridge into the river to drown because the culture in India cherished boys and doesn't cherish girls. And Gil Copper would swim out there and pick up those little girls that were floating then in the filthy Ganges River and swim back with them and dry them off and carry them to the Catholic orphanage in New Delhi. And he saved scores of lives during that period of time. That culture has arrived here in this country, and this bill puts an end to that kind of culture that would select baby girls for death. I yield back.
Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased now to yield to Hank Johnson, a distinguished member of the House Judiciary Committee, 3 minutes.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is not about civil rights, but it's simply another attempt to chip away at a woman's right to choose. It's part of the Republican war on women, also known as WOW. I'm like, wow, why are we continuing to attack women like this? Wow. It's men against women. See, what's happening is we're in a political year, ladies and gentlemen, and politics has been good to the Republicans as of late. They have pitted people who favor immigration against those who support it. They have divided people on affirmative action for African Americans. They have divided people on the issues of gays living in America. These are all diversionary issues. They've been attacking labor saying that it's because of labor that you don't have what you should have. It's a political season, and so this is what they're doing with this bill. It's pitting the men against the women. This bill seeks to prohibit discrimination against the unborn on the basis of gender, but it's really a part of the divide and conquer approach that has been hugely successful for these Republicans. It would require doctors to become mind readers, ladies and gentlemen, and require them to determine what the sex of the child is and whether or not that is a factor in a woman's determination to have an abortion. It's ridiculous. It's shameful. Many of the supporters of this bill are the same ones who voted to eliminate funding for Planned Parenthood and the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Initiative. That's funding that would have helped prevent unintended pregnancies. They also voted, ladies and gentlemen, to repeal, and repeatedly, they voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which has improved the health of uninsured women and children. And recently they supported Rush Limbaugh in his attack on women and access to contraception. You see, this is part of the war on women. Wow. The record is shameful and it's clear. Instead of divisive attacks on a woman's right to choose, we should unite behind policies that prevent unintended pregnancies in the first place. I urge a no vote, and I yield back the balance of my time.
2/3 of those being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The unfinished business is a vote on the motion from the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Stearns, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 4201, on which the ayes and nays were ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar number 341, H.R. 4201, a bill to amend the Service Members Civil Relief Act to provide for the protection of child custody arrangements for parents who are members of the armed forces.
Question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
Members are voting now on a measure that deals with the custody of children when service members return from deployment. One more vote after this one. Later this week, the House is expected to debate intelligence programs and spending for military construction and veterans programs. We spoke with a reporter about the House agenda.
Rich Cohen covers Congress for Congressional Quarterly. The House back from their Memorial Day break. What's ahead on the legislative agenda?
Well, this week there's 2 or 3 bills that are relatively non-controversial, although they are about the guts of government to fund. One bill this week will be the spending bill for military construction and the Veterans Administration. Republicans describe this as their Memorial Day bill. There also will be a bill later this week to authorize spending by intelligence agencies.
What message was Majority Leader Eric Cantor trying to send to his members and to others in laying out the congressional agenda, his proposed agenda, in his memo last Friday?
He gave them he described for them what lies ahead for the next 2 months. Congress, the House of Representatives, plans to be very busy in June and July, and then they take their August break, and we're almost at the election. So this 2-month period, as described by Leader Cantor, is very important for House Republicans. Really, there's 2 things they're trying to do. some of which Mr. Cantor describes. One, they want to finish up as much business as they can before we get to the conventions and then the campaign. So there are various bills out there. The spending bills, they like to pass as many as possible. Then there's also bills that where there are differences between the House and Senate, they need to be resolved. Frankly, that's not the primary focus from the Republican message. The Republican message instead wants to focus on the second area, kind of what are the issues where Republicans want to take to the country to show how the election of keeping a Republican House, adding a Republican Senate, electing a Republican President. Republicans are describing in the House in the next 2 months areas like tax cuts and tax reform, areas like what happens to President Obama's health care reform package after the Supreme Court rules. Leader Cantor described in his memo or prepared House Republican members for what lies ahead in these areas in the next 2 months.
But you pointed out in a Congressional Quarterly article that that message landed with a bit of a thud in front of some conservative groups. Why is that?
Some conservatives objected to it, you're right, because they say, the conservative interest group leaders, that it's that there's not enough, that there's too much bipartisanship, that there's not enough emphasis on what Republicans stand for. Obviously, the Republican leaders disagree. The Republican leaders contend that they are sending out their message, but these outside groups say that, and they've been doing this for the past year, the conservative leaders have been saying that House Republicans have been too eager to compromise in a number of areas, and this is diluting, in their view, this is diluting the Republican and conservative message.
You had the opportunity to cover Democratic Whip Hoyer's briefing. What did he have to say about the Cantor plans for the summer?
Well, he certainly disagreed with the conservatives. He really gave the opposite point of view. He thinks that he criticized really on a couple grounds Majority Leader Cantor's agenda for the summer. One, he said there's not enough of the priorities that Democrats want to address, such as jobs legislation, such as deficit reduction, such as the fiscal issues that need to be resolved by the end of 2012, or else major tax increases and spending cuts automatically would take place. Mr. Hoyer, Minority Whip Steny Hoyer of Maryland, said that the one problem with the Cantor memo is that it doesn't address these issues that need to be addressed and that ought to be addressed before the election rather than waiting for the lame duck. And then Mr. Hoyer's second point, which again obviously is different than what the conservatives said, Hoyer said that there's too much politics in Eric Cantor's memo and not enough substance, that this is all being driven by polls and Republicans' partisan interests.
Rich Cohen, keeping track of goings-on in the House. You can read his work at CQ.com. Thanks for the update.
My pleasure.
These are two-thirds being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended.
Mr. Johnson of Ohio. Mr. Johnson of Ohio votes aye.
I will close again,
On this vote, the ayes are 390, the nays are 2. Two-thirds of those being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion from the gentleman from New York, Mr. King, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 915 as amended, on which the ayes and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 179, H.R. 917, a bill to establish a Border Enforcement Security Task Force program to enhance border security by fostering coordinated efforts among federal, state, and local border and law enforcement officials to protect United States border cities and communities from transnational crime. including violence associated with drug trafficking, arms smuggling, illegal alien trafficking and smuggling, violence, and kidnapping along and across the international borders of the United States and for other purposes.
Question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
The last vote of the day on a measure that directs the Homeland Security Department to submit a comprehensive strategy on border control to the appropriate congressional committees no later than 180 days after enactment that would describe how the department plans to gain operational control of the U.S. borders, which refers to the prevention of all unlawful entry to the U.S. MSNBC writer Tom Curry writes that Deputy Defense Secretary Ashton Carter went to a right-of-center think tank, the American Enterprise Institute, today to deliver the message that the Obama administration is determined to avoid the automatic defense spending cuts which take effect in January, and is pushing ahead with a strategic pivot from Iraq and Afghanistan to the Pacific Rim. We covered Deputy Defense Secretary Ashton Carter's speech today. We'll have it for you after the House is out tonight, here on C-SPAN. Some of our live coverage tomorrow. The National Journal will look at how Mitt Romney or a second-term Barack Obama would govern, looking at both domestic and foreign policy. That's at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, over on C-SPAN 2. And then on C-SPAN 3, a House Energy Subcommittee looks at the potential regulation of the Internet by an international body associated with the United Nations. Live coverage at 10:15 Eastern. And also on C-SPAN 3 at 1:30, a House Oversight Subcommittee will hold a hearing on energy regulation by the EPA versus states, especially as it pertains to fracking. All of that is in addition to our live coverage of the House here on C-SPAN.
On this vote, the yeas are 391, the nays are 2. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Members will take their conversations to the side aisles, please. Will members please take their conversations off the floor? I read. Should I go ahead and write? For what purpose does a gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Gingrey, rise?
I rise to ask for unanimous consent to have my name removed from H.R. 1513.
Without objection?
Thank you.
Gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Rule 22, Clause 7C, I hereby announce my intention to offer a motion to instruct on H.R. 4348.
The gentleman may read his motion.
They've got it. Do you have the copy? This is a motion to instruct conferees. Mr. Brown of Georgia moves that the managers on the part of the House at the conference on the disagreeing votes of the two houses on the Senate amendment to the bill H.R. 4348 be instructed to insist on provisions that limit funding out of the Highway Trust Fund, including the Mass Transit Account, for federal aid, highway, and transit programs to amounts that do not exceed the following levels. Number one, $37.9 billion for fiscal year 2012 and $37.5 billion for fiscal year 2013.
Gentleman's notice will appear in the record.
Thank you.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the Chair will postpone further proceedings today on additional motions to suspend the rules on which a recorded vote of the yeas and nays are ordered, or on which the vote incurs objection under Clause 6 of Rule 20. Any recorded votes on postponed questions will be taken later. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and concur in the Senate amendment to H.R. 5740.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 5740, an act to extend the National Flood Insurance Program and for other purposes. Senate amendment.
Pursuant to the rule of the gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Biggert, and the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott, each will control 20 minutes. The Chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Illinois.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend the remarks and to add extraneous material on this bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as they may consume.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of the Senate amendment to H.R. 5740, the National Flood Insurance Program Extension Act. As my colleagues know, the NFIP is set to expire on May 31st. This program provides vital flood insurance coverage to homeowners in flood-prone communities. Just 2 weeks ago, we passed a 30-day extension, H.R. 5740, to spare property owners and the housing market from another lapse in the NFIP. That bill was approved by this chamber on May 17th by a vote of 402 to 18. The Senate has since amended our legislation, extending the authorization for an additional 30 days for a total of 60 days, or until July 31st. The Senate amendment also eliminates subsidized rates for second and vacation homes. According to an unofficial Congressional Budget Office staff estimate, this provision will generate approximately $2.5 billion over 10 years. Although not identical, the Senate's reform provisions mirror Section 5 of H.R. 1309, the 5-year flood plan, reform bill that we in the House passed with overwhelming bipartisan support last July. And if any technical changes are needed, they can be addressed in any long-term reform measure that we consider in the coming weeks. On that note, I am pleased to report that as part of reaching an agreement on this extension, Senate leaders have offered their public and private assurances that they will vote this June on the long-term flood insurance reform. This agreement is a major breakthrough for those of us who have been pushing for the Senate passage of the long-term bill since the House completed its work nearly 11 months ago. The Senate Banking Committee has already approved a bipartisan NFIP proposal, and I remain confident that the House and Senate can reconcile any differences that remain between our respective visions for reform. Mr. Speaker, the NFIP is over $17 billion in debt to taxpayers, and since 2008, Congress has enacted 16 stopgap measures to keep the program running. Today's bill can and should be the last short-term extension because this program is too important to let lapse and too in debt to continue without reform. Today's bill not only prevents a lapse, it brings us closer to a responsible long-term solution. And the sooner we accomplish this goal, the sooner taxpayers can stop bearing the full expense and risk of an outdated flood program. With that, I would urge my colleagues to support the Senate amendment to H.R. 5740, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves. The Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Again, it is certainly a pleasure always to work with the gentlelady from Illinois on this issue. We brought this issue up a while back, and we were very successful in getting a 5-year extension the way this should be dealt with. The Senate unfortunately chose not to immediately pursue that, so we came back 2 weeks ago and asked for a 30-day extension to our good graces and to the good grace of the Senate. They doubled that and came back with a 60-day extension, but yet we still need the 5-year extension. So we hope that this is a sign of us moving in the right direction. We're very pleased that the Senate is moving with the House in the right direction on this very important plan, and this is an important plan. We are now just 2 days from the start of the hurricane season. And as a matter of fact, as I was here before 2 weeks ago, I said we needed to make sure we prepared for the storm before the hurricane is raging, and that we were just a couple of weeks away from the start of the hurricane season. But we had an early arrival. We had Beryl to come in. So you see how pressing and how urgent this is. This piece of legislation is perhaps the most important piece of legislation that we can pass right now of major benefit for the American people. They will be able to go to sleep tonight to know that at least for the next 2 months, this National Health Insurance Program will be in place, and this will be a great sigh of relief. But that still leaves the heavy lifting to do. We've got the 5-year program, and we've got to do that. But I do want to say thank you, and my hat's off to Senator Reid and Senator Colburn, who came to an agreement. I think it's a good agreement. It's an agreement that we certainly accept here, too. And what we understand happened in the Senate was that the Senate amendment, which was offered in the Senate Banking Committee by Senator Tim Johnson, was to make sure that those homes that are second homes or vacation homes would not receive subsidized rates. And we think that's fair. That's a part of what's in our 5-year plan as well. So that is very much appreciated there. So as we look forward now, all we have to do now is pass this out now and move forward in good faith with the Senate to let's move with dispatch and give the 5-year plan. Now, the reason why we need the 5-year plan is because of the continuity, of the dependability, so that people will know well in advance exactly that we have this program in place. And if I may, and if just my short time here, in case some of the people do not know why this 5-year plan is so important, I do want to state exactly what it does. First of all, it does, in fact, will extend the flood insurance program for 5 years. It will also delay the 5 years that the mandatory purchase requirement resulting from new flood maps. The bill certainly requires annual notification to homeowners who are living in flood zones about the risk to their community. And as I noted last week, a couple of weeks ago, many people move into areas and they don't even know that they're in a flood zone. So it is very important that we will notify people. And our bill, this 5-year program, lets people know every single year, because you have people moving in, you have people moving out. So every year there will be a notification as to whether or not they're in a flood zone. The other important part about this is, as we've noticed, particularly in my own home state of Georgia, where we had such a devastating flood in the year 2009. It was the worst flood that we've had there since we started taking records of that. And as I mentioned, we lost lives. 7 individuals lost their life in one county in my district. And the application of flood maps all across this country, in every corner of this country, our flood maps are outdated. Well, this bill will make sure that they are dated, so that many of our constituency who are at the risk of flood damage are at that risk without any knowledge. So by making the flood maps current, by making sure that information is departed to individuals who move in and out of communities every year that they're in the flood zone. And most important in these tough economic times, under our 5-year plan, individuals will be able to purchase their flood insurance in installments instead of one lump sum. This has caused many people not to be able to have the flood insurance, because prior to this bill, this 5-year plan, as of right now, to get flood insurance, you have to do it as a lump sum. That's why this 5-year plan is important, and it's important for the Senate to move so that we can get this done right away. But this is good news for the American people. We do have 2 months as the hurricane season starts, and I think we have a good agreement here, then good energy to move forward, the House and the Senate together, and put the 5-year plan in place. And I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentlelady from Illinois.
At this time, Mr. Speaker, I would yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Ohio, valued member of the Financial Services Committee, Mr. Stivers.
Mr. Speaker,
Gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
thank you. I'd like to thank the gentlelady from Illinois for yielding me time. I'd like to thank her as chairwoman of the subcommittee on Insurance and Housing for the Financial Services Committee for her incredible bipartisan effort on this bill that she led, along with members of the other side, including the gentlelady from California, the gentleman from Georgia. It's been a true bipartisan effort. Obviously, that's reflected in the 402-18 vote coming out of this chamber in May. I'm happy that the Senate has finally reached an agreement to move forward with the multi-year extension of the flood insurance program, because if we don't have a multi-year extension, what could happen is it could really cause problems in our housing market. I think the gentleman from Georgia has really talked about the importance of continuity and why that's really important for people that live in a floodplain to be able to know they can sell their house, know that somebody can buy a home that happens to be in a floodplain. I think it is important that we have accurate flood maps. This bill will ensure that we have much more accurate flood maps that have 3 dimensions on them, and that will result in better knowledge of where the floodplains are and where the risk is. And this bill will help stop the taxpayer-funded bailouts. As you know, this National Flood Insurance Program owes $17 billion to the taxpayers, and we've got to make sure that it is sustainable into the future. I think the Senate changes, some of them are good. The amendment by Senator Colburn that makes sure that we don't subsidize second and third vacation homes, second and third homes that happen to be vacation homes, makes a lot of sense. It steps up the premiums 25% a year for multiple years until they become actuarially sound. We need to ultimately move the whole program to an actuarially sound basis. That's why I'm concerned about some of the other provisions in the Senate language that amended language out that removed a GAO study regarding privatization and allowing a chance to look at the flood insurance program's ability to pay claims over the long term. I think it is important that we know the viability of the flood insurance program. But overall, I think having Senate amendments and a Senate agreement is a major step forward. I'm excited about continuing to work together to move this program forward, reauthorize it, hopefully for a 5-year term. But this step to agree to Senate amendments to extend the time for a total of 60 days to get us past July, so that hopefully the Senate will have time in June to bring this up, I think allows us to the time we need to make that happen. I do think if anybody in this body cares about our housing market or cares about stopping taxpayer-funded bailouts or wants to make sure that we have accurate flood maps, they should vote for these amendments or to agree to these amendments, and I hope all my colleagues will do so. Thanks for yielding me time.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Well, I only have myself to close if
I have no further speakers, so if you would close, then I will close.
Sure, be glad to. Well, again, let me thank the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Bickert, for her outstanding leadership on this, and it's been a joy to work with her. The American people are certainly appreciative for her efforts in leading this fight. I also want to thank Ms. Maxine Waters, who is our subcommittee ranking member. And also want to extend congratulations to Senator Harry Reid and Senator Tom Corbin. And I also want to just say a moment for the bipartisan relationships that have developed on this bill. This is how we move bills forward. This is how we've got to move the country forward, and this is what the American people are looking to us to do. This is not a Democratic or Republican Congress. It is a Congress of the American people. And the progress of this flood insurance bill is indicative of that fact. And with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlewoman from Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself the balance of my time.